Jesus needs us for his mission in the world. Of course, God can do anything he wants, but he chooses to partner with us. Or perhaps to put it another way, he chooses to include you and me in his work. We are called to partner with Jesus in his work of saving and transforming the world, in establishing God's kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. So those disciples went to prepare the way for Jesus that day. They had a part to play. And in the same way, we are called to prepare the way for Jesus, to enter the world, to enter the lives, the hearts, and the minds of those who don't know him yet. You know, we cannot expect people to accept the grace of God if we, his disciples, are ungracious. And so we are called to be gracious. We cannot expect people to believe in the forgiveness of God if we, his disciples, do not forgive others. We cannot expect people to respond to the love of God if we, his disciples, are unloving or unlovable. We cannot expect people to receive healing from God if we, his disciples, keep hurting them. In 2 Corinthians 5 verse 20, Paul says to the early believers, "Therefore, we are ambassadors for Christ, as though God were making an appeal through us." I mean, here it is in black and white. We are ambassadors for Christ, as though God were making an appeal through us. An appeal to the world through you and through me. Now, an ambassador, of course, doesn't speak for him or herself. An ambassador speaks on behalf of the leader or the country he or she represents. An ambassador is meant to embody in all he or she says and does the values of the one that he or she is representing. And it is the same for you and me. So Jesus wants to bring his kingdom of peace, mercy, and justice to the world. But his ability to ride into the world to achieve that is largely dependent on his ambassadors, on his disciples, on you and me. It is unfortunate that sometimes the way that we portray Jesus to others actually turns them away from him. So Jesus sends us into the world to prepare the world for him, for the King, for the Savior, for the one who brings peace, who heals hearts, who transforms lives. And he depends on us to do that faithfully. So no pressure. Jesus also told the disciples, those two disciples, that they might have to explain themselves to inquisitive onlookers. So Jesus says, if anyone asks you what you're doing, because he sent them to untie, I suppose to hijack the donkey. I mean, honestly, that's what was happening there. So he says, they find a donkey and they untie it and they head off. And he says, if anyone asks you what you're doing, you must explain yourself. We must be ready to answer for our faith and our life. Jesus told the disciples to explain themselves, not to apologize, not to be defensive, but to make it clear in no uncertain terms that what they were doing was in obedience to God's calling on their lives. So, if somebody should ask you why you are being kind, if somebody should ask you why you are being generous, why you are helping, the answer should not be, well, because I'm a really nice guy who does kind things, but rather to turn the focus away from myself and onto the one who sends me. I do this because Jesus lives in me and his Spirit calls me to do this. Why will you not pay the bribe? Why won't you adjust the figures in that report in your favor? Why didn't you just lie to your wife? It would have saved you a lot of trouble. Why does all the news about corruption and dishonesty in our country upset you so? Why? because the Spirit of Jesus lives in me and you. And so you will not lie, you will not cheat, you will not bribe, you will not turn a blind eye to injustice. When somebody asks you to explain your behavior, and here, of course, I'm meaning your Jesus behavior, not your bad behavior. If somebody asks you to explain your Jesus behavior in the world, tell them because it is of Jesus. How many of us actually do that? When somebody says, that was such a kind thing to do, and say, well, thank you so much, it's really because Christ lives in me. Can you imagine the conversations that would follow that response?